So let's start with my first one here. I'm going to go with the Cowboys trading for Woolen from the Seattle Seahawks. You look at Dallas's big issue right now. It's the fact that their defense is very bad and consistently gets beaten over the top. They had a fella, and I'm going to butcher his name because I can't remember it. I think it was Triquezi Bridges as a starter last week at corner. And no disrespect to Mr. Bridges, but that very much sounds like a Key and Peele skit name. And he got beaten plenty of he had an interception on the first drive of the game, but after that, Bo Nix and Sean Payton was like, yeah, target that guy. That's where we're going to spend. That's where we're going to have the most success. So Dallas, offensively, they're awesome. Top 5 in EPA. They score a ton of points. They need somebody on defense who can be a lockdown corner. The Seahawks have made it pretty clear they're not going to be extending Woolen. I mean, these rumors about him being moved or at least being available to be moved have been going on for a month or so now. So I think a move to Dallas would be good for Woolen. It gives Dallas somebody on the boundary who can lock down starting corner or starting receivers and should hopefully see the Cowboys' defensive efficiency increase. They don't need to be a top 10 defense, and that's not going to happen. But if they can just get into the top 18, 19, like just be mediocre, and the offense keeps playing the way that the offense is playing, then they should be able to get things together and get into the postseason. But right now, that defense is very bad, consistently gets beaten over the top. We saw it happen against Chicago, saw it happen against Denver this past week. They need help on the boundary at corner. Bring in Woolen and help solve some issues at that spot. Next up, the Buccaneers trading for Calvin Ridley of the Tennessee Titans. When you have Mike Evans go down, like that's a hard thing to replace. Luckily, Emeka Egbuka has been playing awesome. And, when they drafted Emeka, I was one of the people who was like, all right, you already have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Why are you taking a receiver this early? It's worked out, and I look stupid forever saying that. Emeka Egbuka looks like a future All-Pro. This guy's been awesome. But at the same time, no Mike Evans. Chris Godwin's been dealing with injuries. And it's been nice to see, the likes of Tez Johnson be a good story this year in terms of the way that he's been playing. Sterling Shepard there as well, but I believe he's also dealt with an injury. Bring in somebody who's a starting caliber receiver. You could put him on the boundary or in the slot. And in this instance, if you can go when they're completely healthy, Emeka Egbuka, Chris Godwin, and Calvin Ridley in the slot, that's a pretty good lineup to have if you're Tampa Bay. The Titans aren't winning anything of note. That's pretty evident. And, the team as a whole routinely just gets blown out every week. Get as much as you can with the pieces that you have that aren't going to be part of your future. If they can get a day 3 pick for Calvin Ridley, that's better than holding on to him and getting nothing. So trade Calvin Ridley if you're Tennessee to a team in Tampa Bay who's had several receivers go down. And then if you're the Buccaneers, once you do get healthy at that position, you're not going to get Mike Evans back, which does stink. But this is a team with real Super Bowl aspirations, are the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield's been playing at an MVP-like level. The last 2 weeks haven't been great, but get him Calvin Ridley, who can move, again, from the slot or be put on the boundary, similar to Emeka Egbuka. Chris Godwin coming back with Sterling Shepard as well as the number 4. Tez Johnson could be that number 5 who you work in and get some reps too. But if you can go 5 deep at receiver once you get healthy again, that's a pretty good spot to be in if you're Tampa Bay. Next up, the Buffalo Bills trade for Dolphin safety Minkah Fitzpatrick. And, some people might say, interdivision trades, those rarely happen. And that's true, but we've already seen this year that for the right price, the Browns sent Joe Flacco to the Bengals. The Dolphins, it's not like they're contending for anything right now. They're 2-6. They're going to be going through a rebuild this coming offseason. It doesn't really hurt them if they trade Minkah to the Bills, a team who really needs help on the back end. The secondary for Buffalo is really bad. You look at their safeties in particular with Taylor Rapp, Cole Bishop, DeMar Hamlin. They drafted, I think it's Jordan Hancock, who's their other safety back there right now, a day 3 pick. They need a veteran leader in the secondary and on the defense to really help them out. Cornerback-wise, they haven't been great. Max Harrison got his first action against Carolina, and he actually looked pretty solid. If Christian Benford can get back to the way he looked last year or anywhere close to that, if Max Hairston turns out to be a good pick, Taron Johnson needs to get better at nickel, needs to get better at tackling. But that's why you target a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick, who can be that ball hawk in the secondary, but is also a very good tackler. If they can get something done there, then you have two veteran guys back there in Jordan Poyer, who's much older than Minkah. He's, I think, 35 now. Minkah, who is 29. You have a veteran there who can still play. We've seen that. That's been pretty evident so far with Miami. He's been one of the only guys who's shown any sort of capability of playing with Miami this season. So if you can get something there with Minkah Fitzpatrick, put him in the secondary, it would help out Buffalo's defense tremendously, especially when you look at the issues that they've had up front and stopping the run. Minkah can come down in the box and help against the run. He did that a lot when he was with Pittsburgh. So I think getting Minkah Fitzpatrick for the Buffalo Bills would be a big acquisition for Buffalo. I'm going to take a quick pause right here and acknowledge this video's sponsor, which is Whatnot. Guys, if you know me, you know how much of a nerd I am. The office is decorated and decked out in Batman Funkos, toys, collectibles, horror figures, horror collectibles. And as you can see the backdrop behind me, a lot of different collectibles there as well. You can get all of that, whatever your fix is, over at whatnot.com, whether it's trading cards, figurines, whatever your fix is, whatever you like to do, Whatnot has it all. I'm going to put a link in the description of the video once we're done live streaming here to get you signed up over at whatnot.com. I love Whatnot. Again, if you want toys, Funkos, collectibles, trading cards, they've got it all over there at Whatnot. So I highly recommend, once this video is done, head down to the description, click the link and get started and see if Whatnot has what you're looking for, because I bet they do. So thank you to Whatnot. Again, I love Whatnot very, very much. So go and give them a look once we're done here. Next up, the Washington Commanders get help off the edge and bring in Jaelan Phillips from the Miami Dolphins. 2-6 Miami, they're going to be big sellers. Some might point to Bradley Chubb being the name here. But if I'm Washington, I've already got old Von Miller. I want to get a little bit younger at that spot. Jaelan Phillips, when he's healthy, is a pretty solid edge rusher. They don't really have a number one there right now. Dorrance Armstrong was supposed to be that, but even so, that's not a high-level one. Jaelan Phillips is not an S-tier one either, but he's closer to being that than what Dorrance Armstrong is. And if you can acquire Jaelan Phillips, once Dorrance Armstrong gets healthy and you have Phillips, Armstrong, and Von Miller, that's a pretty solid edge rusher rotation that you have there. Secondary-wise, Washington could be in the market for a cornerback as well. I know Marshawn Lattimore had an interception against the Chiefs, but he's played very poorly throughout this season thus far. They need to get better on that side of the ball. They're old, and their young players like a Mike Sainer still has shown flashes of being good, but is still very young. So they don't have that nice balance of, a veteran who still has some youth to him. Jaelan Phillips, I believe this is his fourth year in the league. So been around for a little bit, but also not extremely old. And I think that would be a good move for Washington to bring him in and see what he can give them off the edge. Next up, the Denver Broncos trading for Cleveland Browns tight end David Njoku. They signed Evan Ingram in the offseason, and he's largely been a non-factor, hasn't really been like a go-to tight end for them. David Njoku, on the other hand, can give you the best of both worlds. He can block really well. He's a really good receiving threat. And somebody like that would fit really well in with Sean Payton's offense. It would give Bo Nix a really reliable safety blanket underneath to complement Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims at receiver. So that's something that I would pay attention to in terms of Denver reportedly wanting to add a tight end. David Njoku makes sense here because the Browns have Harold Fannin, who has emerged as their leading receiver right now. Really good player out of Bowling Green that they drafted this past April. He's the future at the position. David Njoku is going to be a free agent this offseason. If you're Denver, send a day 3 pick for David Njoku. If it's a 4th round pick, I think that's pretty fair value for what he'll bring to the table. And for Cleveland, it gives you another draft pick in the 2026 draft. So it makes sense for both parties. I think David Njoku to the Denver Broncos makes a lot of sense. Oh, by the way, hey, here we go. Breaking news into the pump fake here. The Eagles are trading for cornerback Michael Carter from the Jets. They get a 7th-round pick as well in the trade. What are they sending in exchange for this? So the Eagles are sending John Mechie and a 2027 6th to the Jets in exchange for Michael Carter and a 2027 7th-round pick. So breaking news, a trade happening as we talk about the trade deadline here on the pump fake. The Eagles getting Michael Carter, the cornerback from the Jets, and they send John Mechie, who they traded for from Houston this past offseason. They trade John Mechie then to the Jets as New York looks for another pass-catching option. John Mechie was very good coming out of Alabama. Obviously had the cancer situation that he had to get dealt with. So hopefully he gets a fresh start there and gets a real look with the Jets. So how about that? A trade happens as we're talking about trades. The final one that I'll talk about in terms of trades that should happen, I'll say Anthony Richardson goes to the Vikings. This one feels pretty chalky. That's probably the most chalky one I've had. But when you look at the situation at quarterback for the Vikings this year, Carson Wentz has been pretty bad. J.J. McCarthy wasn't very good in the 2 games that he participated in. In 7 of the 8 quarters, he played bad football. Carson Wentz is now done for the year with a shoulder injury. Max Brosmer is the only other quarterback on the roster. And if you can get Anthony Richardson for, I don't know, a 4th or 5th round pick, that's something that you should probably do if you're Minnesota. A guy with that much upside, because there's a ton of upside there in terms of his size, his athleticism. It's just a matter of honing in the arm and making it less of a fire hydrant, spraying water around. Turn him into a really good straight firing hose, and you have something there. Go to the school of Kevin O'Connell, which we've seen has worked out for Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones. And look, if J.J. McCarthy ends up not being the guy, then you have somebody there who at least gives you a lot of upside that you can try again to, a raw talent that if you can craft him into being a more accurate passer and a more consistent passer, you have something there in Anthony Richardson if you're the Vikings in that situation. I think that the Colts, you got to remember, Daniel Jones is only on a 1-year deal. Are they going to make the same mistake that Minnesota did and let Daniel Jones walk the same way that the Vikings let Daniel Jones walk? Yes, but they also let Sam Darnold walk in the same offseason. I think that Daniel Jones is going to be the Colts quarterback for the long haul. What that deal looks like, I think it'll be somewhat similar to what Geno Smith got from Seattle at the time, what Ryan Tannehill got from Tennessee at the time. I think it's going to be one of those situations. So if you're the Colts, you send Anthony Richardson to a quarterback-needy team in Minnesota, a quarterback whisperer in Kevin O'Connell, and see what you can do there if you're the Vikings.